is Pratvik, and thank you everyone for joining the session on production support best practices. So, today's webinar is not just for support engineers, don't get me wrong there, because it's relevant for developers. So, developers, it's relevant for all the QA teams, infrastructure teams, managers, and everyone else who's responsible for delivering stable systems to the customers, right? So, let's get started with by the end of the session, I want everyone here to walk away with three main things. One is a clear understanding of production support responsibilities and best practices that improve reliability and reduce the number of incidents. And you guys should probably mostly get guidance on what to do and what not to do in live environments, right? So all these are something which are the key takeaways which I want you guys to understand by the end of the session. I think let's move on. I think you guys will start understanding what is needed and everything, right? So first thing is production support is the process of maintaining live systems that real users depend on every day, right? So once your software goes live, the responsibility shifts from building user stories or building features to ensuring like system availability, how stable is the system, how's the performance, and how quick you can recover from the failures, right? The first important thing which I've noted down here is system availability, right? So if the systems are unavailable, the business stops, right? So availability is the most critical point in our project, and you can just imagine if your payment gateway or something gets stuck, and you're at the most peak shopping hours, and the payment gateway is stuck, and you lose out on a lot of business. So which is why your system availability becomes the most critical point in your projects, right? So that is the reason it's there all above there. And the second thing is you have to resolve incidents within SLA. What do you mean by SLA? SLA is a service level agreement. So this is an agreement which the stakeholders have decided for you guys, that this, if so and so criticality of incident comes in, you have to try to get it resolved within this so and so time, right? So that is something which is very important. Just give me 1 second, guys. Okay. All right. So the next thing is, you have to prevent recurring issues, right? So the best support teams don't just fix problems. What we do is we prevent them from happening again, right? So that is something which you guys have to engrave into your minds as well. That we're not just fixing problems one time. We have to fix the problem so that it does not happen again. So we need to keep documenting. We need to understand, what happened there, and that is the only with this mindset we'll be able to fix everything in the live system, right? So we as support team, we do not just sit there and then try fixing the issues as and when it comes. We document these issues, and then we try to bring out a fix that this kind of issues, recurring issues, will not happen again. So our system starts getting stable day by day, right? That should be our end goal. And finally, which is the most important thing, I've not said this enough in the projects which I've worked in as well, right? Effective communication. Just the technical skills which we have is not enough. Communication during incidents are equally important as, and when you're trying to fix the issues or how much technical knowledge you have, it's equally important that you communicate effectively with the entire team, so everyone is aware of what you are doing, and you are aware of what everyone is doing, so that you understand the whole process, right? So coming on to the next slide. So first thing which I've put down here is, again, the in production, obviously speed matters, but stability matters more, is what we're trying to tell. Right? A rushed fix that creates an outage is worse than having a slightly delayed but safe fix. Right? So that is something which you guys need to understand. That suppose something happens, and then you might have a feeling that restarting a server might fix it, but you immediately do that without understanding what might be the root, what might be the issue actually, and what might be the impact of it, and then you go ahead and restart it. It might lead to a bigger issue altogether, right? So that is something which you need to totally avoid. And the second rule is no change without process, right? Every production change must follow a control process. right? So you need to have approvals intact, you need to have impact analysis thought through, you need to have all kinds of testing done, and then you also need to have a rollback also planned, because it might work all good in lower orgs, but as soon as it goes to prod, things might start breaking, right? So once that happens, you should not be in a position where everyone panics and then you don't get any work done and then your whole system is down for hours, right? So that is why you need to have everything planned. You need to have your rollback strategy planned as well, so that these kind of issues will not happen. And most of the major outages which you see in the world right now is mostly happens because someone has skipped the process somewhere, right? So you have to keep tightening your process throughout in order to make your production stable, right? So there's nothing which happens in production without a process. And you might be as technically good enough, but we are humans, we do make mistakes, and that is why process comes into picture. So we need to build this process as strong as possible to keep our environment stable, and we need to maintain the stability and keep making it more stable, right? So that is what we're trying to do in this session as well. And the third thing is, always we have to follow a run book, right? So what is run book? Run book can be of two things, right? One major use of run book is when you are having a deployment planned for all of your fixes which is there, you need to have all your components listed down and all your stories listed down along with those components on what is going live as part of that release, right? So once you do this, when some functionality breaks in production, you know exactly this is the story which is causing this, and these are the components which is responsible, and then you will have your rollback strategy planned for it as well. And the run book make basically does not let you panic anywhere, right? So when the DevOps guy is deploying it into the org as well, you will know exactly what needs to be deployed, and if there's any issue comes back, you know where to look at, that these are the topics that caused you the problem, right? So that is why it's very important that you maintain runbooks, and you need to update these runbooks effectively, right? In stressful situations, people forget steps, they don't know what to do, and this is your guide, this is your roadmap, and that is the reason you need to have a run book. I will be sharing a run book with all of you. Whoever is interested can put down in the chat as well, so that you understand what a run book looks like, what are the components which needs to be updated. And there's no documentation, then obviously people start escalating it, right? So don't improvise and don't do new things in the org. You have to always have a process defined, so that is what a run book will do for you. And while you're doing incident management, while you're doing the support activities, it's very very important that you log and track everything that you do, because after n number of days, I've seen this a lot of times in my project as well, right? After 3 months down the lane, something happens to the asset, or something happens to the process which we had done 3 months back, which will come biting us later. So if you have not logged or tracked everything that you did in the past, it will obviously come down to a blame game, right? We do not want to end up in that situation. We always want to track, and we need to know that what we have done in the past, so that we'll be able to prove that this is what we did. And more than proving, it's about you knowing that what you have done, because you will not remember based on the number of incidents you'll solve, not remember what you have done in each incident, right? So any change which you do on production, if there's no incident, first do not make any change, and if there's an incident, track what are the changes that you did. Okay, so that is what this rule means, right? So mainly why you need to do this is because you need to have accountability, and you will have some RCA. When someone else wants to do the same fix later on, you can do it faster if you're logging everything, right? So these are your important topics, rules which you need to follow. And now I think let's move on to a bit more practical side of things, what we should be doing during incidents, right? So once you get an incident, if there's any issue, there are a lot of issues which happens in production, and as soon as you get an incident, it doesn't mean you need to give a fix, right? You need to first understand that there are a few steps which you need to follow, right? So the first step is you need to acknowledge the issue, that you are looking at this issue as soon as you get it, because the stakeholders who are looking at all the production issues, right, they expect some kind of a response. And they'll only understand that someone is looking into it, and the panic will reduce once you acknowledge that you are picking this up. and it will take some time, right? So then that is when you start analyzing what is the issue. Use logs, use dashboards, you'll have your monitoring tools, you know your process, right? You have your process defined. Use everything that is in your hands to understand what the issue is first. And then, like, before you give a fix, in most of the cases what happens is there will be an issue which, there might be a batch which ran, and it might be a continuous problem which might occur, right? The batch might have ran where like 50 records have updated already, and there are like 1,000 more records in pipeline. So you need to contain the issue first, right? You need to stop that batch from running, or you need to stop some activity from happening, and you need to contain that issue first. So in most of the cases this might be there, and in some cases containment is not there, because it's you just had 50 records and it's updated. And also in those cases what you might have to do is there might be more 20 records which might be coming in. So you need to first stop that job which caused the issue, and then you need to and then you need to understand resolving it, right? Even before stopping the job, you need to go through the process, right? You need to understand what is the problem which I'll face if I stop the job, and I need to get the approvals from all the stakeholders, and only then I will be able to contain or stop the issue first. And then I go into my resolution zone, right? I need to understand what the issue is and how to fix it, and what might be the root cause, and all these you should be able to get it in your logs, right? So this is again a long term plan which you need to do. Again, it might take some time, like 1 or 2 hours. Then you understand the issue, then you resolve it. And then throughout this whole stage, right, you need to keep communicating it on the incident, that what you have done. Like, are you trying to do this, you're trying to do X and Y things, you need to keep updating it on the incident. If you've not got a solution for it, it doesn't mean that you keep it to yourself and then keep working until you find the fix. You keep updating on what you have done, what you have tried until now, and what is it that you're going to try, so that the stakeholder should not feel that no one is looking at it, and he goes into that panic mode, and you do not want to be in that situation, right? So which is why you need to update your incidents proactively. And then once you have resolved everything, you have communicated everything on the incident, the final step which you need to do is having an RCA defined, right? What is RCA? So the whole process which you did, and what you did to resolve, and what is the issue. So that is exactly what is RCA, which is root cause analysis, right? So once you define this root cause analysis and what is the step that you took to fix that issue, it will help all the other users, or even yourself, when you face the same issue again. And the second thing is, there is this issue which is logged, and this issue might be recurring, right? So once this issue keeps recurring, you will have to pick it up for fixing it, right? So that is the reason why RCA is again the most important and the last step which you need to do in your incident, right? And there are few things which you need to do as well. Like, these are the steps which you do when you get an incident, but apart from these you will have other roles to do as well, right? So you need to keep monitoring your systems proactively, because great support teams, they don't detect issues, they don't detect issues once the customer tells them, right? So you keep detecting issues before the customer even realizes it, right? So you need to have some monitoring tools set up, and that when there are few issues happening, you need to set up some monitoring logs, that this, if this issue happens, and if you have a predefined process that this is what I need to resolve, you go ahead and do it. And if you don't have any process, then you log this, you highlight it and escalate it to the teams responsible, and then they will come back and then give you a strategy, or you need to think about some strategy and show it to them that this is what I can do to resolve it. How will we be able to do it, right? So you don't go and fix if there's no process. If there is a clearly defined process, you monitor, fix. I think that is something which you need to do. And you should always go for safe debugging options, right? So any read only investigation or log collection and controlled validations which you need to do, that is something which you need to do in debugging, right? And then cross team coordination is very important, because when you're trying to resolve something and someone else has picked up the incident already, so this is something which we don't want. And there is something which you're trying to resolve and you don't know the issue, and you want help there, you should clearly call it out to the other teams who's responsible. You can't find fixes for everything. You need to understand that it's a collaborative thing when you're working in production support, and you need to understand that someone else would have faced the same issue earlier, and you taking 5 hours to fix that issue, if you can avoid it and if you can reduce it by 20 minutes to 20 minutes or 30 minutes, you have to take it and you have to put it down on the chat groups which is there, so that everyone else understands that you are facing this issue, and if he has faced it, he'll come up and he'll help you out there, right? So the last thing is you should always stay calm and structured, right? Because once you go into a panic mode, you will always go into fixing strategy, right? So I've seen a lot of people who have tried fixing things and it's gone haywire, right? So fixing one small issue, it leads into a bigger problem for us. So rather you stay calm and you know your processes. You have to, so if there's no process, we have to understand that we have to build process to make our system stronger, not improvise and do it on our own, right? So that is something which is a big no, right? So to prioritize correctly during incidents, we must understand how to prioritize these incidents, how severity works, right? So that is our next slide, where we basically define how our priorities are set, right? And these priorities can change on project to project, right? But like these are the most generic items which people use, right? Your sev 1 will be your critical outage, right? So suppose your whole system is down, all the customers are impacted and your revenue is leaking continuously, right? And like for example, you have an online banking system and it goes down and nationwide and no one is able to use it, right? So that is a very big outage, and you can't be like, I have few incidents to resolve, I need to fix it as such, right? So you need to circle back, and then you need to uh, fix the sev 1 issue. Everyone has to sit, it's all hands on deck, and then everyone needs to fix it, right? No one has to, you can't tell that I have some sev 3 issues, I need to fix it. No, you have to first fix the severity 1 issue, and then comes your severity 2, which is your if there's any major degradation, right? Like if there's a core functionality where there's something partially which is impacted, like the customer is able to view everything but he's not able to get his billing details, and he's not able to pay at the towards the end. So all these are like small nuances, but it's still a major degradation because the customer is not able to do some transaction, right? So that is again your sev 2. And here as well, like people have to more prioritize towards sev 2 cases than sev 3. And sev 3 is something like, you have some workarounds available, and it's something which is low business impact, and something like maybe your business users are there and they want some reports to be generated, and they're not able to generate this report as soon as possible, right? But we have some workarounds to generate that report, so that is something which can be provided to the business users, and we can still work out, but the issue still needs to be fixed, right? So sev 3 will have its own sla management. SLA, as I told you earlier, it has some time limits where you can fix some issues, and you are bound to fix these issues in this time period, right? So that is your sev 3. Okay, so all of these severities will have its own time limits, time frames in between which you need to fix. And as and when you start building processes around these, your confidence level starts improving, and you will be more confident enough to handle these kind of situations, right? And I usually you should not be panicking around everywhere. The only reason why people panic is because you don't have process setup, right? So that is the reason I keep telling, like, we need to document everything that we fix, everything that we see, so that it becomes easier for us going forward, right? So we don't have to think so much or panic so much for the same issue which we have faced earlier, right? So and we keep fixing recurring issues so that our environment becomes stable enough that we stop facing such issues and such panic situations every time, right? So now let's discuss on few of the mistakes that could be avoided in production incidents. Right. So first is unauthorized deployments. First thing, like usually what happens in production arcs, like there are few developers who come in and they want to, they'll be in extended warranty support. Once we go live, the developers themselves will be support guys, and we will have to see and understand what issues are happening in the production, and it'll be all major issues because we just went live, right? And you as a developer will have a very keen interest on fixing things, right? Because once you see an issue, you want an immediate fix, and you don't want anyone to know about it, right? So that is the mindset of developer who's in his initial stages and he'll want to fix things quickly. That is a very big no, because if you are deploying things unauthorized, then if it leads to a bigger issue, then you'll be in a very bad position, right? So you need to be upfront about it. You need to tell, this is the issue, this is what we need to do, and this is the process that we need to follow, right? When you're deploying stuff, you don't deploy anything to production directly. It has to go through the process of testing. It has to go through the process of run book updates, and then it has to be approved by someone, and only then it moves to production, right? So all these unauthorized deployments is a big no. And direct production fixes, again, there are, since you are a production support guy, you will obviously be given all kinds of access to mitigate the issues, right? But it doesn't mean that you have a free will of doing anything and everything in the arc. You need to not do all these kind of direct fixes on production. So for these, especially, we have something called hot fix windows. And usually, suppose you have a deployment cycle every 2 weeks, so there can be hot fixes deployed in between these deployment cycles as well, to mitigate such kind of immediate issues where you have immediate fixes. And even for these hot fixes, we need to have it thoroughly tested and then it moving to the higher arcs, right? And then you should not be ignoring any small alerts which comes in when you're monitoring. And again, like I mentioned, right, you should not be making any assumptions, that you should not be making guesses that this might be the issue, let me fix it and see if it works out or not. No, you again, process comes into picture. You should not be making any assumptions. You should follow the process. If there's any issue, you feel that this can fix it, go ahead with the whole cycle of deployment, telling it to the people, being upfront about it. And yeah, so again, hiding issues is what I've already told, right? So escalating early is something which you need to do, and it's not a weakness, it's a strength that you will have to have, right? So escalating early doesn't mean that you're the one who's causing the issue. It means that you're highlighting that this is the issue and this is what needs to be fixed, and then you can go into that RCA mode and you can fix it, right? So that is very important. And then when you are bombarded with all these critical issues, right, it doesn't mean that you take all the issues, keep all the insights within yourself, and you work on your own and trying to get a solution, right? Working alone is not a solution. You have to collaborate between multiple teams, because usually what happens in production environments, it's not just your system which is there. You are not independently working. You'll have other systems, like maybe if you are working in a CRM system, there might be other systems like provisioning, there might be a billing system, there might be some inventory management system. So all these systems are involved, and you need to discuss with all these team members, that this is the issue which I'm facing when I'm trying to hit your system. What could be the issue, right? So you need to communicate with them and understand, and once they give their input, you need to take it back and then see how you can fix it. It's always a to and fro between the team, collaborative work, and not just you doing everything on your own, because you will not know their system and they will not know ours, and until we communicate, we'll not understand each other's, right? So again, so that is what I told, like, as I was mentioning more in terms of communication, right, I want to again highlight more stuff towards that as well, like how we need to communicate and how we need to strategize all these incident management when we are into production support, right? So again, we need to have some set frequency, right? So always, silence creates panic situation within stakeholders or anyone who's involved, right? So even if there's no fix yet, you need to put in that at least we are investigating, and the next update will be put in the next 30 minutes, right? And then after 30 minutes, you drill down on what you have done, and then you tell them that this is what I've done and I'm trying to fix something else. And what is a and you have to be very clear and concise about what you're trying to do. And usually what happens when you're trying to resolve incident and someone who's trying to understand what you're trying to do, he will not be a technical person, he will be a business person, right? So you should not be using a lot of technical jargons in your incident management, because they will not understand what you're trying to do. If you're telling him that my API is stuck at this point, I'm trying to fix my code, SQL query is not working, big no. People will not understand what you're trying to do. You should tell them that it's my system is experiencing some high load, and we are trying to mitigate that by doing XYZ, right? So you have to be very business oriented with them, and you have to talk in business terms. If not, they'll not understand what you're trying to do, and it will just create more panic in the room, right? And again, at the end, what is more important for the customer is, you have to share what is the update, to share what is the impact, what is the ETA, what is the next steps that you're doing, exactly what we discussed, right? So coming to documentation and knowledge sharing, right? So first thing, updating runbooks is something which I've already clearly highlighted. That, after every incident or any deployment which happens, you need to keep updating your runbook, because at the end, when something happens, you always have a process that is defined to, go back or circle back to understand, this is my issue, and this is the component that is exactly leading to this issue, and you need to get it fixed, right? So that is why it's very important that you update your runbooks, and you need to update your knowledge base, right? So having all the information to yourself doesn't make the system faster, right? So when we are a team, when we are working towards as a team, everyone needs to have a hold of this knowledge, and maybe someone else has created a document which you can refer to, and if you have learned something, you need to share it across in a common shared folder, that, everyone has access to that, and everyone has gets that knowledge as well, and the team becomes more faster and reliable in terms of fixing things in production, right? And this is not just in production, right? This is in general, and in general, when you're doing development as well, you have these knowledge documents which are shared across, so that everyone is working towards a common goal, and it's going to be faster than, you working on everything, right? And what the document captures, right? So what changed, right? What happened, what led to this issue, and why it failed, how it was fixed. So all these kind of issues needs to be captured in the document. And finally, the root cause analysis is something which I've already explained you guys, that, you need to clearly note down what is the cause for this, and what is the action that you took to, get everything resolved, right? So again, on a closing note, I would like to tell, when you see a lot of issues, you will always face a lot of failures like this. And when you are working in a very huge organization, right? So it's a very well known fact for everyone that we learn from our failures, and that is what leads to a lot of successes, right? And that is how we build all these processes. The process does not come in hand come with us right in day one, right? So all these failures which we face is something which we need to build as a process. We need to circle back and understand how this process can be followed in the future, and make our system more stable, right? So finally, to wrap up, I would like to give some key messages on what we took away. And if you remember few things from what we spoke today, I would like to remember you guys these four things, which is very important for us, right? Again, production support is more about reliability and discipline, is something which I want you guys to remember. And processes exist to protect systems and customers. Again, that is something which we discussed. Communication is very important, and it's as important as your technical expertise. And that is, I have not said this enough, but it's more important than your technical expertise, to be honest, because you need to understand that, by communicating to people, that is where you build your technical expertise as well, and you get more knowledge in terms of that. So do not keep it to yourself, do not keep everything that, that you are able to do it, but you should communicate it effectively to everyone, so they are aware of what you do first, and you understand more things out of that by communicating it with them. Okay, so these are three things. And then finally, stability on the system should be prioritized over any shortcut or any fast, quick fixes which you can give, right? So finally, like, lot of technology which we build, technology which we go live, and a lot of systems can fail. But what is something which will not fail is set of processes that we have defined based on our failures which we have seen, and how the systems respond. And I think that is what our key takeaway today should be, that, we have to have processes in life, and we should not go for shortcuts, and we should not be fixing something directly. And regardless of what failures, processes will not fail us, right? So that is one thing which I want to mention. And thank you everyone for your time. And this is it, and I'm open to